The thesis is the focal point of your paper. All the main points or evidence should point to and strengthen your thesis. This support works in the same way a wheel's spokes support the hub and keep the wheel rolling. Thesis statements are important because they establish your argument as well as your opinion, which will be discussed in the paper. It also lets the reader know the tone of your paper. A thesis is not a general statement of fact. Rather, it should be a statement you have to prove. A thesis should not be broad or vague, but narrow and specific. This will make it easier to discuss within the confines of your paper. Your thesis must not be biased. Rather, it should address the issue evenly and fairly. You should take a stance one way or the other, but make sure you treat both sides fairly and avoid overly emotional or narrow-minded language. When choosing a topic, you should ask yourself a few questions to see what you care about most. Ask yourself if you care about the subject, if it's something that frustrates you, or if you'd like to correct a wrong idea you often hear. You may also propose a solution to a problem. List those basic ideas, choose one, and narrow it down into a specific thesis statement. Decide what you want to express in your thesis statement. You are trying to convince the reader using examples that your way is the best way. So, pick a side. Your thesis statement should cover all the main points you plan to address in your paper. Your thesis will usually only be one sentence long and come at the end of your introduction. You should discuss your main points and make your position clear. A thesis plainly shows how your argument relates to your main idea. As you write your paper, continually refine your thesis to ensure that you are getting to the point. If you can't answer the question, so what? Then you should consider rewriting your thesis. As you address your own argument, be aware of the other side as well. It can be very helpful to discuss the counter-argument in your paper. Think through the opposing viewpoints before you begin writing your paper so that you can refine your thesis. For example, maybe your thesis starts as, all public schools should be privatized. But as you think through and read about opposing arguments, you decide you don't quite feel that way anymore. So then you should probably change your thesis, right? You can decide on a more moderate position, such as, states should allow for more voucher programs for those who choose private schools. Remember, as you write your thesis statement, each piece of evidence will need to be backed up by research or well-reasoned opinions. Find quotes, articles, books, and other academic materials that support your topic. Your best resources are libraries and academic journals. If your paper does not require sources, make sure your argument is well-reasoned with good examples. Some teachers or assignments allow for the use of personal experiences as well in your persuasive writing. Let's look at some sentences and determine whether the thesis statement is good, bad, or ugly. Here's one sentence. In today's world, there is media everywhere you turn. The media skews perception of the real world, and too much violence is seen as acceptable because of the amount of violence in media. This thesis statement is ugly. It is poorly worded and has too broad of an idea. Media saturation, real-world perception, and media violence should each be addressed separately. Let's rewrite it. Violence in the media is desensitizing. Okay, this statement is much clearer and more straightforward. But even this statement will need to be more refined because media is such a large category. It includes TV, movies, music, books, magazines, all sorts of things. It's better to hone in on one specific problem. Here's an even more focused statement. Violent films, such as those made by Quentin Tarantino, turn violence into recreation and desensitize people to its harsh consequences. How about this one? Many elementary schools are going to a year-round schedule. Alright, this is a good start for a topic, but it isn't a thesis. It does not state an opinion or take a stance on the topic. So what that elementary schools are going to a different schedule? Is this good or bad? Do you have a better idea? Here's one possible improvement. The new year-round schedule of elementary schools will be hard on working families who must arrange for childcare. Look at this first sentence. troublesome aspects of government. This is a bad thesis because it is a sentence fragment. The idea is incomplete. So here's a possible rewrite. Maintaining a balanced budget has always been a troublesome aspect of government. Your thesis is the foundation of your paper. You can't build a good paper without a good, strong thesis statement. If the thesis statement, or foundation, has problems, the rest of the structure, or your essay, will reflect those problems. Building a strong thesis is the key to building an effective paper.